Good afternoon.
Morning.
Morning in Los Angeles, which is where Andrew is. I'll introduce Andrew and Tim properly in a moment. For those of us who are in the UK and watching or ready to watch the 2020 jig competition, we thought it would be a golden opportunity, maybe the only time where we have this opportunity, since we're virtual rather than live, sad though that is, but an opportunity to bring back some of the people who entered and won the competition and different aspects of the competition in earlier years. And where better to start than with the winners of the first competition way back in 1988. So let me introduce you to, from Los Angeles, Andrew Jones.
Hi, guys.
And nearer at home from Frittenden in Kent, Mr. Tim Bull.
Hi.
The thing that links all three of us is that we were all members of Mr. Jorrocks years ago. I left somewhat earlier, either just after their peak, or I think they're sure it was me holding them back and they peaked somewhat after the time I left.
Yeah, that one.
That's the one. And of course, John Gasson was also a key player in Mr. Jorrocks. This is something of a reunion. Andrew, you emigrated to Los Angeles or to the States how long ago?
1994, 26 years ago.
26 years ago.
Yeah.
When did you two last meet?
26 years ago.
So we didn't need COVID to stop you guys traveling. That was it. And I haven't seen Andrew in all that time either, though I've seen Tim many times. The first competition was held in memory of John, who was tragically killed on the way to Sidmouth in 1987. So we held the first competition the year after. John was a very keen jig dancer, and we wanted to promote jig dancing, try to encourage it. So the first question is, what made you want to enter that first competition?
Well, if I start this one off, for me it was very simple. I had to be there for John. He been a friend of mine since we were both 16. We'd met in a folk club in Headcorn in the middle of Kent, and we danced together in Morris team. We started Mr. Jorrocks Morris Dancers together. We played music together in sessions and so forth. And John was the heartbeat of Mr. Jorrocks. He was the person who really kind of pushed the team forward and was sort of trying to get us gigs. And his great ambition was that Mr. Jorrocks should dance at Sidmouth, where we'd seen all of our Morris dancing heroes perform when we first started going there. And he managed to get us the gig in 1987. We were all on our way down to do our first performance at Sidmouth Arena, and that's when we got the terrible news that he died in a road accident en route. It was shattering for all of us. It was extremely shattering for me personally, because I'd been away in Australia for 2 years. I've been looking forward to getting back together with John, dancing with him, playing music with him. And so from my point of view, there was only one place to be, and that was to be part of that competition, if I possibly could.
Yeah, same feelings. I haven't known John as long as Tim. You know, I knew him once I joined Jorrocks, and I remember that first time at Sidmouth, waiting. Where's John? Where's John? You know, not a surprise, since it wasn't necessarily always on time, and so we just thought it was that, and then we heard the news. But John so loved jig dancing, it seemed obvious to do a jig competition to commemorate him. And jig dancing was part of Jorrocks' DNA. In fact, even to join the team, you had to practice a solo jig. And then when the team thought you might be ready, you'd go out on a dance out and be asked to perform that jig in public. And if you passed the test, you were in the team. You'd already learnt other dancers, so you could join the team and dance out. So it seemed, yes, of course we have to do a jig competition to commemorate him, and we have to be there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what was the jig that you danced, that first jig?
Princess Royal. There were two of us from the team dancing. Rob was the other person, and we were allowed two representatives, but we all, being jig dancers, we all wanted to do this, and so we had a little competition amongst ourselves to decide who should do it. And I felt very fortunate to be one of those representatives because I wasn't an original member, so it was a huge honor to be selected to enter the competition.
It was a classic jig, of course, Princess Royal, but Andrew put his own inimitable spin on it by putting in the leapfrog over the standing man, in this case, the standing musician, as the final coup de grace. And Mr. Jorrocks had become well known for leapfrogs in our dances. And we decided that we would leapfrog a standing man, which is something someone had told us that the old teams used to try and do in the 19th century. And so putting it in the jig was the obvious thing to do. And Andrew, being our best leapfrogger, was definitely the man to do it. The other thing I remember about that jig was when we were rehearsing it, we played the tune as it's noted. But then I suddenly got this idea to transpose it into the minor key.
Yes, yeah.
And suddenly it was as though the whole thing came together, the combination of introducing the leapfrog, dropping it into the minor key, and suddenly it went from being Princess Royal into being something that was uniquely ours.
I was going to mention that if you hadn't, that transposition into the minor key just made that tune so much more involving. And I do remember practicing jumping over Tim playing and realizing that it's got to be timed such that it's to squeeze in on the melodeon as I go over the top, because a pull out kind of limits. I've got to get my legs up even higher past him if I was going to go over on a pull rather than a push. So.
Excellent. Well, we did have an innovation award in later years, but you were far too early for that. I would say, and I haven't checked this with statisticians, that I'm pretty sure Princess Royal is the most danced jig in the competition over the many years. In that first year, there were 26 entries, so it was no mean feat to win over 25 others. What can you remember of the atmosphere that day?
I remember it as being a bit like a huge reunion. It was just like all of our mates from the Morris dancing world were all crammed into that room. And everyone we knew, everyone we were friends with in the Morris dance world was either watching or taking part. It really was a great celebration of a life and memorial to a life. And an opportunity for lots of people who'd known and loved John to share their memories and to celebrate him in a very appropriate way.
Yeah, it was an electric atmosphere, hugely emotionally charged, and I'll never forget the announcement, and the reaction to it. And I felt so humbled, proud but humbled that our team was the one that won it. Just for John. Yeah.
You entered the competition more than once, the two of you. What else can you tell us about your competition experience?
Well, the funny thing was, we decided the rules should be, if you enter 1 year, you don't enter the following year. We don't want it hogged every single year. So that meant the next year couldn't do it. So I was all set, all determined that following year I'm going to be chosen again to dance it. And I remember sometime in the middle of that summer, we were dancing out at Bateman's, and I was there, and we danced across set, and then we were supposed to mid-air turn to face up the set to go into the next movement, and I forgot. And I landed facing across, and everyone else is facing up. I thought, shit. So I turned to face forward, but we were dancing on brick, and the edge of my shoe caught in the cracks in the brick, and my ankle just literally folded under me, and I fell out of the set. Everyone else barely noticed because we're all focused on dancing. Someone jumped in to replace me. The dance just carried on as though almost nothing had happened. And I'm in agony at the side, being attended to by Lizzie Dripping and Blackstrap Molasses. So I was sort of happy with all these girls kind of trying to look after me. But that was it. And when you all got off and came over to see what had happened to me, I remember Rob going, well, I guess he's out of the jig competition, gives room for one of the other surfers. I thought, shit. So I couldn't enter. Well, yeah, it was then going to be the following year when I got a chance to enter.
And what happened then?
I won it. Or we won it again. We won it again.
We won it again, and but being totally lazy, we just did exactly the same jig before. And I think you wouldn't get away with that now. I think there's been much innovation. Innovation from when I saw the competition later on. I thought, gosh, we would never have got away with that. Because people would have just moved it on, you know, in the three years since we won it the first time, they would have moved it on so much we would never have had the chance to repeat the success with the same thing. It was great fun to win it again, and it meant I've got 2 tankards. Now, this one's got my ribbons on, but yeah, I got 2 tankards.
Yeah, you were saying, Tim, in the earlier discussions that it was almost an afterthought, that tankard, because I remember it was nearly a year before I got it engraved. I had to bring it back to Tracy and get it engraved.
Yeah. But my other memory of that first competition, though, I mean, looking back to it, and was that there were an awful lot of great humorous moments during it. There were a lot of what you might nowadays call novelty jigs, people just showing off in different ways. One of my abiding memories was one of my dear, sadly also departed friends, Dave Roberts, playing for a jig, playing the melodeon for a jig while standing on his head.
Yes. Yeah.
And sort of various other people were doing sort of completely wacky things, and but when you put it all together and thought about who John was and the sort of things, you know, you thought he would have loved if he
would indeed, yes.
If he would have been there to see it, he would have absolutely loved it.
I don't think in the first year and some of those early years, it wasn't the idea that it's a competition and you must win. It was a celebration of John that first year, that everybody joins in, we're all going to dance and party, and oh, by the way, it's a competition at the same time. But it's always been just that atmosphere. It was done to promote standards and get everybody to think about what they were doing and both enjoy, but also dance better and better. And I think it's a wonderful idea.
Mm. The last thing I remember about it, I wanted to mention was in those days, we got to do the winning jig. Did we do it at the arena?
You probably did.
Yeah.
We did it on the arena stage. And actually, the winning moment at the competition was awesome. But then going and doing it on the big stage in the arena was something I will never, ever forget. That just felt really, really moving, particularly as it was at the arena, standing behind the stage at the arena, that we heard the news of John's death the year before.
Yes. Yeah.
I can say that to both of you that the jig competition continues to go from strength to strength. It still is a celebration of jig dancing. John isn't forgotten in that competition. There are plenty of people there who remember him as well as you do.
Yeah.
There are plenty who weren't born when he died, of course, and that's as it should be, new generations coming on. But the standards continue to well, I was going to say to get better and better. One of the things would be lovely to have is you two at your peak competing with today's dancers, because I still remember your dancing and the playing, and I don't think that we're in a different league now by any means, but there's some cracking dancing going on.
It's interesting though, because many times in my quiet moments or even driving to work, I will visualize that dance and I'll go through all the steps and the movements in my head. So not to consciously remember it so that I don't forget. Just it was something so important in my life. Jorrocks was important in my life. And I just always want to remember that and feel that it's in me. Now, of course, my visualization of me dancing that would be very much from my reality of dancing it these days, which is why I keep promising Tracy I'll come back and wimping out. But
just have this image now of the Los Angeles traffic cops saying, "Oh no, that's just Andrew Jones remembering his jig dance."
Honestly, officer, that's all it was.
A final question. Any other particular memories of that competition? What any other memories you have?
So I remember the third time I entered it, and there was a dancer in, I forget which team. His name was Julian, and I'd seen him through the years and watched him dance, and he was a wonderful dancer. And I kept saying to him, "You really should enter the jig competition. You're really good." And he didn't think he was good enough. And I kept saying, "No, you've got to enter. You really should enter." And he eventually did. Went up against me and he beat me by 1 point. 1 point. And it was all my fault because I'd encouraged him to dance. It was a wonderful dance. And so I can't really complain, but it is ironic.
Well done, Andrew. My other memory of the competition was that several years after we won, I entered the competition myself as a dancer because I'd never done it. And I thought, I want 1 year, I want to enter as a dancer. And I remember I worked out which dance I was going to do. I think Helen was playing for me on pipe and tabor. And I'd practiced and I was training to be fit. And I'm pretty sure that I managed to pull a muscle about 2 weeks before the competition, which completely compromised my ability to dance the way I wanted to. And so I was complete rubbish. But I did achieve the ambition of having danced on the John Gasson jig competition stage as well as played on it. And so after that, I could retire happily.
Hang up the bells. Excellent. Well, it's been fantastic having the two of you together and catching up with you both. I hope that everybody watching, and there'll be hundreds and hundreds watching, feel the same. It's been some wonderful reminiscing. So I'm going to sign off now. Good to see you both, and thank you both for joining in.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
Keep jig dancing.